The scorching sun blazed over the endless desert, where silence stretched as far as the eye could see, broken only by the faint footprints of a solitary girl. She was no ordinary traveler. She carried the heavy burden of a land torn apart by years of relentless war. With every step she took into the vast, unforgiving sands, she walked not just toward an uncertain destiny, but toward a hope that could reshape the future of an entire people. Her journey was whispered about in hushed tones by those left behind. Some called her brave, others called her reckless. Yet none could deny the fierce determination burning in her eyes. In a world ruled by distrust and bloodshed, she dared to venture alone into the heart of the desert, seeking an end to the violence that had claimed too many lives. What awaited her beyond the horizon was a test of courage and conviction unlike any before. As days turned into nights under the relentless stars, her resolve never wavered. The desert was a cruel judge, punishing the weak and sparing only those with unyielding spirit. She faced the scorching heat, biting winds, and the crushing weight of solitude, yet pressed on, fueled by a vision of peace that seemed as distant as the shimmering mirages. Her every breath was a prayer for the land she loved, a prayer for reconciliation and healing. When she finally returned, the world she knew had changed, and so had she. The quiet strength she carried back was not born of weapons or warfare, but of the unbreakable will to bring an end to the cycle of hatred. Her footsteps across the desert became a symbol of hope, a testament to the power of one person's courage to inspire a whole community to dream of a better tomorrow. This is a story of bravery, sacrifice, and transformation, a tale that proves even in the wild and unforgiving West, peace can be forged by those willing to walk the hardest paths. Stay with us as we unravel the journey of the girl who walked into the desert to end a war, and discover how her return changed everything. The moment the girl stepped beyond the boundaries of her village, she left behind everything familiar: the laughter of children, the scent of sagebrush, and the worn paths trod by generations. Ahead stretched the vast, merciless desert, a place where many had ventured but few returned. Her heart beat steady, fueled by a purpose far greater than herself: to end a war that had scarred her people and threatened to consume their future. She carried not a rifle or a badge, but an unshakable resolve and a vision of peace. Whispers had long filled the air about the impossible task she dared to undertake. Many questioned how a single girl could hope to bring an end to decades of violence and mistrust that had hardened even the toughest warriors. Yet, her silence in response was louder than any argument. Each step forward was a quiet declaration that peace was worth any sacrifice, that the old ways of bloodshed would one day be replaced by understanding and unity. The desert itself seemed to challenge her at every turn. Blistering days burned her skin, cold nights tested her will. Sandstorms rose like furious ghosts, threatening to erase her very presence from the world. Yet, the girl pressed onward, guided by stories passed down from elders, stories of a time when the desert was a place of sacred peace, not war. Her journey was as much spiritual as it was physical, a pilgrimage to restore balance to a land torn apart. Along the way, she encountered signs of the war's relentless grip: the scorched earth where battles had raged, abandoned camps whispering secrets of lost souls, and the distant echoes of gunfire. But with every hardship, her resolve only deepened. She understood that her path was not only about reaching the other side of the desert, but about carrying hope back to those who had forgotten its meaning. Her footsteps traced a new story, one that defied the cruelty of the past. As the sun dipped below the horizon on her first night in the desert, the girl settled beneath a blanket of stars, each one a silent witness to her courage. She whispered prayers not just for herself, but for all who had suffered in the long war. In the vast silence, her heart beat strong, ready to face whatever trials awaited, because she knew that the fate of many rested on the shoulders of one brave soul willing to walk alone. Days bled into nights as the girl journeyed deeper into the desert's heart, her spirit tested by isolation and the relentless elements. Yet, with each passing moment, she discovered strength she had never known, an inner fire fueled by memories of home and the faces of those she loved. The desert's harshness was a crucible, shaping her resolve into something unbreakable. She was no longer just a girl. She was a beacon carrying the light of peace through shadows of despair. Along the way, the girl encountered unexpected allies, wild horses that ran alongside her, symbolizing freedom and endurance. Desert flowers that bloomed against all odds, reminding her that life could flourish even in the harshest conditions. These small signs of resilience whispered encouragement, fortifying her for the battles yet to come. The desert, once a barrier, began to feel like a companion in her sacred quest. Yet the weight of the war lingered heavily in her mind. She knew that beyond the desert's edge, the wounds ran deep, families torn apart, villages burned, and hearts hardened by loss and betrayal. The stories she carried in her soul were not just her own, but belonged to every person yearning for an end to the violence. This burden could have crushed anyone, but for her, it was a call to rise higher, to become more than just a messenger. At times, doubt crept in, fleeting shadows that whispered questions about the futility of her journey. Was one person truly enough to shift the tides of war? Would her courage be met with scorn, or worse, indifference? But in the darkest hours, she remembered the faces of children playing freely before the conflict began, the shared songs and laughter from times of peace. Those memories became her armor, and hope her sword. By the time the girl reached the far edge of the desert, where the sun kissed the distant mountains, she was transformed. The war had not been forgotten, nor had the pain, but her spirit was tempered by the desert's trials. Ahead lay the unknown, tribes hardened by years of strife, leaders wary of peace, and the fragile chance that one voice could rise above the noise of battle. Yet, she carried within her the quiet power to change everything. Crossing the threshold from the desert into the land still gripped by war, the girl became more than just a traveler. She was a living symbol of change. Her footsteps stirred whispers among wary eyes that had known nothing but conflict. Some saw her as a fragile outsider, unprepared for the hardened reality. Others glimpsed a flicker of hope in her unwavering gaze. Every step she took was a quiet challenge to the old ways, a promise that peace was not only possible but necessary. As she moved through villages scarred by battle, the air hung heavy with suspicion and pain. Mothers clutched their children tighter, warriors tightened their grips on rifles, and silence fell where laughter once lived. The girl spoke little, but her presence spoke volumes. In her eyes, those broken by war glimpsed a future untainted by hatred, a future where wounds could heal and enemies might stand side by side as friends. Her mission was not without peril. She faced hostility, cold stares, and whispered threats. Leaders hardened by years of bloodshed questioned her purpose, wary of what peace might cost them. Yet, her courage never faltered. With every refusal to back down, she carved a path through skepticism, laying down a new kind of courage, one rooted in patience, understanding, and the quiet power of compassion. In moments of solitude, she sought counsel in the stories passed down by her ancestors, tales of warriors who chose mercy over vengeance, of lands once united before the shadow of war fell. These memories were her compass, guiding her through the harsh terrain of distrust. The girl understood that ending a war required more than bravery. It demanded the strength to forgive and the humility to listen. Slowly, the tide began to turn. Where once there was only anger, flickers of curiosity and hope started to grow. The girl's return from the desert was not just a physical journey. It was a spiritual one, awakening hearts long closed to peace. In the unlikeliest of places, her footsteps planted seeds that would one day bloom into a future where war was a distant memory. The village elders, custodians of old grudges and new fears, convened to weigh the girl's message. They sat beneath ancient oaks, their faces etched with the wear of countless battles. Some saw in her the reckless hope of youth. Others glimpsed the possibility of salvation for their weary people. The debate was fierce, reflecting the tumult that still raged in the hearts of many. Yet, her journey into the desert had spoken louder than words. It was a testament to a courage that could not be ignored. In a moment that would become legend, the girl stood before the elders and warriors, her voice steady as she shared the truth of her journey. She spoke not only of the harsh trials faced in the desert, but of the vision that drove her forward. The dream of a land healed by peace, where children could play without fear and the scars of war could fade. Her words stirred something deep within the room, breaking through walls built over decades. The elders, moved by her conviction, began to see beyond the bitterness of the past. They listened as she recounted stories of tribes and settlers once united by shared songs and harvests. The memory of unity was fragile but alive, a beacon calling them back from the brink. In that moment, the power of one's faith in peace became undeniable, kindling a fire that had long been smothered by hatred. Word of the girl's return spread quickly across the land. From distant camps to humble homesteads, people whispered of the brave soul who dared to walk alone into the desert and come back with a promise. Skepticism persisted, but so did hope. A hope that this single act of courage might be the spark to end a war that had stolen too much. As night fell and fires flickered under the stars, the girl's presence ignited a quiet revolution. The barren desert she crossed was no longer a symbol of desolation, but a path to renewal. Her journey reminded all who heard it that even the wildest frontiers could be tamed, not by force, but by the courage to choose peace. With the elders' hearts beginning to soften, the girl moved beyond speeches and stories. She sought to build trust through action. She walked among the villages, sitting with families who had lost loved ones, sharing meals with warriors once poised for battle, and listening deeply to tales of pain and hope. Her presence was a balm to wounds both seen and hidden, showing that peace was not just a dream, but a possibility shaped by empathy and understanding. The war scars were evident in every corner: burned homes, shattered families, and silent fields where crops no longer grew. But with each act of kindness, the girl sowed seeds of renewal. She helped rebuild fences, guided children in games once lost to fear, and carried messages of goodwill between rival camps. Her determination inspired others to look past old grievances and imagine a shared future. Yet, the path was still treacherous. Not all welcomed this change. Whispered threats followed her steps, and hostile glances reminded her that many clung to bitterness like armor. But she stood firm, knowing that true peace demanded resilience. Every challenge she faced was a test of her resolve, and she met each one with unwavering grace, proving that courage took many forms. The girl's journey became a living story of transformation, weaving together the fractured lives of those around her. Slowly, gatherings once filled with suspicion turned into councils of collaboration, where voices joined in dialogue rather than dispute. The desert she had crossed was no longer a distant place of hardship. It was the foundation upon which a new peace was built. As seasons changed, hope blossomed alongside the desert flowers, fragile yet persistent. The girl's courage had sparked a movement, one fueled by the desire to heal, to forgive, and to build something lasting from the ashes of war. It was a reminder that even the smallest acts, when rooted in bravery, could ripple across a land thirsty for peace. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky with hues of amber and violet, the girl stood on a hill overlooking the land she had traversed. The villages below were no longer islands of fear, but connected communities finding common ground. Fires burned warmly in hearths where silence had once ruled, and laughter echoed where it had been absent for too long. Her heart swelled with a quiet pride. Peace was no longer a distant hope, but a living reality. But the true test of her journey was yet to come. The war's architects, the hardened leaders who profited from conflict, gathered to decide whether this fragile peace would endure or shatter under pressure. Their eyes, sharp and calculating, sought to extinguish the flame she had kindled. The girl knew that winning hearts was only part of the battle. Winning minds was the challenge ahead. With the courage born of the desert's trials, she confronted these leaders, not with threats or force, but with the undeniable power of truth and compassion. She spoke of the lives lost, the families torn apart, and the future that awaited if they chose to lay down their arms. Her words, spoken with unwavering conviction, cut through the noise of greed and anger, planting seeds of doubt among those who once ruled with iron fists. The battle for peace was far from over, but cracks appeared in the fortress of hostility. Some leaders, moved by the girl's bravery and the shifting tides among their people, began to envision a world without war. The desert's harsh lessons had taught her that change was slow and often resisted, but never impossible when driven by a single, unyielding heart. As night settled over the land, the girl's journey stood as a testament to the power of one, to change, to heal, and to inspire. Her footsteps across the desert were more than a physical journey. They were a path carved through fear and division, lighting the way toward a future reborn in peace. With the winds of change beginning to stir, the girl's presence inspired more than just hope. It ignited action. Communities once divided began to send emissaries to parley, to listen, and to find common ground. The language of war slowly gave way to the language of peace. In quiet gatherings beneath ancient trees and around flickering campfires, former enemies shared stories, laughter, and tears. The desert, once a symbol of isolation, had become a bridge between hearts. Yet, healing old wounds required more than meetings and words. The girl understood that trust had to be earned anew every day. She led efforts to rebuild homes, restore the land, and provide for families shattered by conflict. Each stone laid and each crop planted was a step toward restoring not only the earth but the spirit of a people battered by years of war. Her courage became contagious, spreading like wildfire through the dusty streets and wide-open plains. Resistance remained, however, from those who feared losing power and control. Shadowed figures plotted in the dark, sowing distrust and hoping to unravel the fragile peace. But the girl, armed with the lessons of the desert and the strength of her convictions, stood resolute. She became a shield for the vulnerable and a beacon for the weary, embodying the unbreakable spirit of those who dare to dream of a better world. Communities that had once prepared for battle now prepared for harvest festivals. Children played freely where once they hid in fear. Music and dance returned to the evenings, weaving new memories into the fabric of a land reborn. The girl's footsteps had traced a path not just through the desert, but through the hearts of a people longing for peace. Her journey reminded everyone that peace is not a single moment, but a continuous act of bravery and hope. It is forged in the everyday decisions to choose kindness over anger, dialogue over violence, and unity over division. In the heart of the Old West, amid harsh landscapes and harder histories, this truth blossomed like a rare desert flower, fragile, beautiful, and enduring. News of the girl's peace mission spread beyond the desert's edge, reaching distant settlements and sparking conversations among those tired of endless conflict. Her story became a legend whispered in taverns and around hearths, a testament to the power of one person's courage to alter the course of history. People began to question the cost of war and to imagine a future shaped by reconciliation rather than revenge. Despite the growing momentum, the girl remained humble, knowing that the journey was far from over. She continued to walk among the people, listening, healing, and inspiring. Her presence was a living reminder that change required patience and persistence, that peace was a fragile flower needing constant care. Each step was a promise to stand for those who dare to hope. The desert winds carried her story across the plains, intertwining with the songs of bards and the prayers of the faithful. Her name became synonymous with bravery and compassion, a beacon in a land long shadowed by fear. Children grew up hearing of the girl who walked into the desert alone and returned with a vision that transformed their world. But with every step forward, the challenges multiplied. Old rivalries flared, and those resistant to change fought to reclaim the narrative. The girl faced moments of doubt and exhaustion, yet she drew strength from the people who had chosen peace. Together, they formed a community united not by bloodshed, but by shared dreams and the courage to rebuild. In the heart of the Old West, where the wild met the weary, the girl's journey illuminated a path forward, a path where peace was possible, even in the face of history's darkest storms. Her footsteps through the desert were a call to all who listened, that even the smallest light can pierce the deepest darkness, and that hope, above all, endures. As the seasons turned, the girl's vision of peace began to take root in the hearts of many. Where once there was only suspicion and anger, communities began to celebrate their shared humanity. Villages that had been battlegrounds transformed into places of gathering and growth. The scars of war remained, but they were no longer barriers. Instead, they were reminders of a painful past that made the present peace even more precious. The girl herself had changed. Hardened by the desert's trials yet softened by the bond she forged, she stood as a testament to resilience and hope. Her courage had become a catalyst, inspiring others to lay down arms and extend hands in friendship. The stories she carried, of sacrifice, endurance, and forgiveness, became a common language, uniting tribes and settlers alike under the banner of peace. Yet peace was not granted, it was earned daily. Challenges persisted, from old wounds reopening to new doubts casting shadows. But the strength of a united people, led by the girl's unwavering spirit, proved greater than the forces of division. Together, they built bridges, literal and figurative, connecting once isolated communities and fostering dialogue where silence had reigned. The desert she once crossed alone now echoed with the footsteps of many walking toward a shared future. Children played where warriors once stood guard, and songs of hope replaced the sounds of conflict. Her journey had sparked a movement, one that would echo through generations, a beacon shining against the darkest nights of the Old West. In this new chapter, the girl's story was more than a tale. It was a living legacy, a reminder that even the wildest frontiers could be tamed by courage, compassion, and the unyielding belief that peace is possible when one dares to walk toward it. As twilight embraced the land, the girl stood once more at the edge of the desert, gazing toward the horizon that had once seemed so vast and unknowable. Behind her lay a transformed world, shaped by the footsteps of a single soul who chose hope over fear. The war that had once threatened to consume everything was giving way to something new, something fragile yet powerful: reconciliation. She understood that her journey was but a beginning, a spark that would need nurturing long after she was gone. Peace required vigilance, patience, and the continuous courage to choose understanding over division. But the path was clear, and the people were ready. The desert, once a symbol of desolation, had become a place of promise and renewal. Her story, passed down through campfires and generations, would inspire countless others to believe in the impossible. It taught that no matter how harsh the land or deep the wounds, one person's bravery could change the course of history. The girl who walked into the desert alone had returned bearing the gift of peace, one step at a time, one heart at a time. As the stars emerged, twinkling like distant hopes, she smiled, knowing that the future was brighter because she dared to walk a path few would follow. The Old West was no longer just a tale of conflict. It was a story of courage, transformation, and the enduring power of hope. Her footsteps echoed softly into the night, a reminder to all who would listen. Peace is not a distant dream. It is a journey begun by those brave enough to take the first step. In the harsh and unforgiving landscape of the Old West, one girl's courage carved a path where others saw only desolation and despair. Her journey through the desert was more than a physical crossing. It was a passage from conflict to hope, from division to unity. Through her bravery, she reminded us that even in the darkest times, one person's determination can inspire a movement capable of changing the course of history. The story we followed teaches us that peace is not given. It is earned through sacrifice, resilience, and the willingness to face fear with an open heart. It challenges each of us to ask, what walls are we willing to tear down? What divides can we bridge by simply choosing compassion over conflict? The girl's footsteps echo a timeless truth, that the smallest act of courage can ignite the greatest change. As you reflect on this tale, consider the power within your own hands and hearts. Every step toward understanding, every moment of kindness, every choice to listen instead of judge builds the foundation for a more peaceful world. The Old West was transformed not by swords or guns, but by the unyielding spirit of those who dared to hope and act differently. If this story moved you, know that you are part of its legacy. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments. How has a single act of courage or kindness changed your life or those around you? Your voice can inspire others to walk their own paths toward peace. And if you want to hear more stories that touch the soul and challenge the spirit, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button. Together, let's keep the flame of hope alive, proving that no matter how wild the frontier, compassion and bravery will always lead the way. Thank you for being part of this journey. May your heart remain brave and your spirit unbreakable.